Hello everyone, my name is Reem Ahmed and I'm a member of the Technology and Solutions Professional team in Nile.com. As you know, we have started a series of videos demonstrating the private cloud or Microsoft private cloud capabilities and how we can use these capabilities in order to solve some major business challenges that any organization can face in its daily processes. So in today's video, we will be talking about how we can use the Microsoft Private Cloud Platform in order to monitor the performance of the applications and services running in our infrastructure. And not only that, but also in order to be able to take automatic remediation actions to solve any problems or any errors facing these applications and services. To be able to do this demonstration, we will be using the System Center family products, crossing the three layers of System Center. So from the services management layer, we will be using the service manager, and from the orchestration layer, we will be using the orchestrator, and finally from the management layer, we will be using the operations manager and the virtual machine manager. Okay, so simply the business challenge that we'll be talking about today is that we assume that we have a bank and this bank will be offering an online web service for its customers. Usually at the beginning of the month, these web servers are heavily utilized because normally the customers will be checking their bank accounts and seeing if the salaries have been added to these bank accounts or not. And thus the utilization on these web servers will increase and cross the threshold predefined by the organization, and this will require the provisioning of a new web server in order to balance the utilization. Also, it may require the provisioning of an additional another web server in order to further balance the utilization and have the normal threshold that is predefined by the organization. After this peak time or after the beginning of the month, the performance on these web servers will decrease, and thus the threshold will decrease on these web servers, and this will require that the bank decommission these web servers in order to save the resources and use the infrastructure resources that he has more efficiently. Okay. So this is simply the business challenge that we'll be covering today in our scenario. What we'll be doing in our lab environment is that we will have an online web server, and for the sake of the demonstration, we will not be provisioning a new web server, but we will have another web server that will be in an offline state. Okay? So what will happen is that we will generate load on this online web server till it crosses the threshold that we have predefined. After this crossing to the threshold, a performance alert will be generated in Operations Manager, and this will create an incident in Service Manager. This incident will trigger an orchestrator runbook. The triggering of this orchestrator runbook will basically do two things. The first thing is that it will go to the virtual machine manager in order to power on this offline web server. Okay, and the second thing that it will do, this runbook, is that it will add this powered on web server to the load balancing node in order to further balance the utilization on the web server and reach the predefined threshold that we have predefined in our environment. Okay, so this is basically what will happen in today's demonstration.
Okay, so now let's go to the lab environment. First, we will log into the client. This is the client machine we'll be using in today's demonstration. Let's first open the virtual machine manager and see the lab setup that we have. As you can see that we have two clustered Hyper-V hosts, and those hosts carry all the System Center products family and virtual machines, together with other products, other relative products such as Exchange, SQL, and so forth. You can also see that we have here the two web servers that we've talked about. One of them is running and online, which is Nile.com IIS, and the other one is currently stopped and offline. Okay. Now, let's also check the website that we will try to generate load on. It's called Nile.com Lab. This is just a simple website, web page, actually, for the sake of the demonstration. And now let's go to the IIS machine or the online web server. Here it is. And let's check the network load balancing manager and see that we only have one node currently in this load balancing. And if we click refresh, this is sure just one node. The other node has not been added yet. And here you can see the performance monitor. And here we will be monitoring the number of connection attempts per second. Okay. Now let's go again back to the client machine and try to generate load on this web server and see what will happen. We will be using a simple load tester tool called the Web Performance Load Tester. And this is the predefined load configuration that we have in our environment. It will run for 14 minutes, and the number of users that will try to assumingly connect on this website will be 25 users. So let's run this load configuration. As you can see here that the test is currently in progress, and what we will expect now is that with the test in progress that the performance monitoring will monitor and see that the number of connection attempts on the web server has increased. So if we open here the online web server, you can see that the number of connection attempts has started to increase on this web server. Okay. So how will the alert be generated? The alert will be generated using a data collector set. In this data collector set, it will monitor the performance counter, which is the connection attempts per second, and it will generate an alert when the number of connection attempts per second is above 20 connection attempts per second. Only then will an alert be generated in System Center Operations Manager. So let's go back to the client machine and go to SCOM, or System Center Operations Manager, in order to see if the alert has been generated. So this is the console of System Center Operations Manager. As you know, System Center Operations Manager is simply an end-to-end monitoring tool. This monitoring tool is used to monitor each and everything in your environment, beginning with the infrastructure layer, the hardware, the network, storage, everything in your infrastructure, up to the level of the services and the application running in your environment. So it can give you the full picture of how your environment is acting, and can lead you to proactive monitoring and taking a proactive remediation actions to any alerts or any errors that happens in your infrastructure. Here in the active alerts, we can see the alerts that are currently active. You can see that here the alert has been generated, which is called the IAS event ID generation error. And you can see here in the alert description that a counter value of 22, which is over the limit of the 20 that we have talked about, which is the threshold above which an alert will be generated. What we said before in the scenario is that when this alert is generated, an incident will be created in Service Manager. So now we can open Service Manager. This is the Service Manager console. Okay. In the work items, you can see here change management for the change requests that happens or that are opened in your environment, the incident management for all the incidents in your environment, problem management for the problems that are available in your environment, release management, and also the services request fulfillment. If we open here the incident management, we can see that we have here all incidents. This will return a list of all the incidents that are currently available in your environment. We can refresh here and see that the incident has been created. It's called IAS event ID generation error also. If we open this incident, the status of the incident is currently active. And if we open the activities related to this incident, we can see that it has an orchestrated runbook, which is to add the new node in the IAS NLP, and the status of this runbook is currently in progress. So now let's log into the orchestrator. This is the orchestrator, and this is the runbook designer console. You can see here that currently the runbook is in progress. Okay. And that it's currently going through these activities. Simply this runbook will take the data from the incident created in Service Manager, then it will go for the virtual machine manager to start the virtual machine or the offline web server, as we said, and then it will run a remote PowerShell command in order to add this virtual machine to the load balancing node so as to balance the utilization on the web server. Also, of course, there is a delay between this activity and this activity in order to give time to the virtual machine to start up, and then it will run the PowerShell command as we said. So let's now go back to here and see to the web server and see if the node has been added or not. It's refreshed. It's currently not been added due to the delay that I've just told you about. So we can go back to the virtual machine manager and see if the IIS2 is currently, what's the status of it. And you can see here that it's currently running. So it started up. So now we'll be expecting that the PowerShell command will start to run. Okay, takes time, as I said. Let's go back here and check the performance alert and the load balancing node. Refresh, and here you can see that the other node has been added to the load balancing node. And if we see here the performance monitor, we can see that the performance is decreasing on this web server, and that the utilization has been balanced over and between the two nodes that are currently in the load balancing node. So this is all for today. Thank you for listening.